Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host. I'm a filmmaker on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode I pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on streaming. I pick a favourite film from that topic and battle it out against a guest to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Please enjoy part 1. Hello, podsters or podroonies, if you prefer. We are back again for another episode of the Film vs. Film podcast. And as Mickey 17 has buggered off again to a different release date, Heart Eyes is swapping in and is out on the 7th of February, I think, around the world. So just in time for Valentine's Day, as it is a kind of a Valentine's Day slasher movie. So, of course, we are talking slasher films 2, the sequel, as we have done a slasher films episode in the past and talked, frankly, about a lot of slasher films in the past as well. But the first episode, I think, was John Carpenter's Halloween versus the New Nightmare. Nightmare on Elm Street, New Nightmare. That was not much of a contest, to be honest. You can guess who won that one. Not difficult. But of course, I am joined by the fabulous Parker, who is swapping out his scalpel for his kitchen knife from Dissect That Film. Hello, sir.
Hello, Martin. Thank you for having me back. It's so exciting to get to talk to you, as always, and to get to talk about one of my favorite genres, slashers.
So tell us about your podcast and where can we find you, sir?
My podcast is Dissect That Film. I am 1/3 of the show, where we pretty much go through the plots of all sorts of films of all different genres and kind of pick them apart. We dissect them in our own special way. You can find us on all the social medias at Dissect That Film or Dissect That Film Pod, or on all the pod apps and YouTube and all that stuff at Dissect That Film, where season 3 is starting up. So
nice.
Help us out.
Go listen. So Heart Eyes, then, what do we make of this one? So it's from the same filmmakers, I believe, who revived the Scream franchise. Yeah, Scream, even though it's Scream 5 and Scream 6.
Right.
And it's got a few of the actors back for this movie. I think it does seem like a pretty, well, from the trailer at least, it seems like a pretty like standard slasher, but just set on Valentine's Day. And he's got kind of a cool mask with, frankly, just like the hearts for eyes.
Yeah.
So
I think that's the beauty of slashers, is like they always drop a trailer for a new one and it'll just look like every other slasher. But when you see the movie is when they always incorporate something maybe we haven't seen before. Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of it. It's like, I think you already have the horror fans. Like, it doesn't matter what you do. Yeah. You drop a trailer for a horror film and they're may not have the best trailer, but they're going to check it out. They're going to see what it's all about, especially horror fans. I think like diehard horror fans are going to just support no matter what. And then I think it's from those fans seeing it and then giving you like, hey, it's not what you think. It's not paint by numbers. That'll draw in the other audience that may be like, yeah, maybe I'll just wait till it drops on streaming or, whatever. And I think that's the beauty of it. Like, for me, I love slashers, and I know like the slasher genre is 75% kind of similar. Oh, yeah. But you always have those hidden gems, and I hope that's what Heart Eyes is. It's not just like, okay, it's on Valentine's Day. It's just My Bloody Valentine, but with a little twist. Just give me something unique, but also, don't stray too far away to, take yourself out of that category. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because it's always going to be interesting watching a new slasher film because, like, plot-wise and story-wise, I mean, there's never really going to be much variation of what you can do, really. Mm-hmm. But I think part of the fun of these films is just how inventive are the kills going to be.
Exactly.
And how inventive are they going to be with, like, maybe the supernatural stuff, if there is going to be supernatural stuff in here, like what rules are going to be in play to kill the killer, who's going to be the final girl or boy,
Right.
So I don't know. I'll probably catch it on streaming, to be honest. But I mean, if my girlfriend wants to see it at the cinema, I won't say no. So
there you go.
Cool. That's Heart Eyes. Then should be out 7th of February, people. Right. Should we go with my choice first, then, people? Because I'm feeling greedy to go first. I'm feeling greedy for blood and being splattered by a guy wearing a hockey mask. Yes, I am going for Friday the 13th, the final chapter, or what it should be called, Friday the 13th, the not so final chapter, because I think there's been loads of sequels since then.
Yep.
Yeah, I haven't seen many of the Friday the 13th movies, to be honest. I've seen the first one, weirdly Jason X, when he goes into space.
You went on both sides of the spectrum there.
And Freddy versus Jason.
Oh,
so I haven't seen many of them. Yeah.
So you haven't experienced like that core Friday the 13th. I feel you have to go through the entire franchise at least one time.
Yeah, definitely.
Like if you've already we're going to be talking about chapter 4 a lot in this episode, but like watch it again. Make sure when you go through it again, you watch this again, because then it'll kind of open your eyes to things that are kind of going on in the franchise. They don't connect super well, but they always leave some small nugget to be like, oh yeah, okay, yep, all right,
nice. And mainly I went for, this one because we haven't really covered a Friday the 13th movie yet on the podcast. We've done a few from Nightmare on Elm Street. Like last year we did Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors, which I loved. That was a great ride. And we've done, obviously, the original Halloween, which I mentioned, and a few others here and there. But yeah, so we've not covered a Friday the 13th movie yet. And when I was doing my research, this film, I think, was pretty much regarded as the best one, I think. With a lot of the articles I was reading, it was pretty much in the top 3 on all these ranking websites. So I went for this one. And, there's some really creative kills in here. As I kind of mentioned near the top, there isn't really much of a story here at all. Frankly, it's just teenagers being killed.
That's kind of the way this franchise goes. Like, I think when you sign up, like when you watch the original, it does give you a good backstory of why the killer is doing what they're doing. And for a lot of people don't know, a lot of people didn't want to make the sequel because the original filmmakers were like, what? but Jason was dead. Like, why is he coming back to be the killer? Like, what are we doing? And so a lot of people left the franchise, like a lot of the staples. And chapter 4 was the movie that brought a lot of those people back.
Right.
Because and it a lot had to do with the director of this one. Joseph Zito.
So would you agree with that, though, that this is regarded as the best one?
So I would put this as my favorite of the Jason is Alive saga. So there is 2 categories of the Friday the 13th. Well, there might be more, but you have the chapters 1 through 4 is the I'd say 2 through 4 is like Jason is alive. He's an actual person. And then 5 is this weird thing. I won't spoil it for you who hasn't seen it, but then 6 through 8 is what we call the zombie Jason saga, where he is now undead. So this is my favorite of the he's alive. He's an actual person.
Okay.
Where 6 is my favorite zombie version of him.
Okay. Yeah. Nice. So what happens in Friday the 13th then? The final chapter. Going to IMDb as always. So after being announced dead and taken to a morgue, Jason Voorhees spontaneously revives, escapes from the hospital, and stalks a group of friends renting a house in the countryside near Crystal Lake, of course. So initial reactions for you, Parker? What do you make of this one?
I haven't seen this one in a while, This was I usually try to get in as many as possible, but right now I've kind of only been checking out the ones that we cover for Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
So it's been a bit, and rewatching this, it was an adventure. I just remember why I love it. I love the absurd teenagers. My favorite though is the inclusion of the Jarvis family, and I think that's what kind of elevates it over its predecessors. Is that we don't just have the horny teenagers, we have this like loving family, like a mom going through a divorce. You know, she's got two, good kids. You got a son who's making the most insane masks ever, like for an 8-year-old child or however old he's supposed to be. I just like kind of that inclusion. Like you still get your sleaze, but you also get some heart, and then you probably have one of the best Jasons in the entire franchise, and that's Ted White. I love his just the way he moves on screen. Just everything about this movie just kind of fits together, and it has some really awesome kills. Because Savini's back, baby. Savini's back for this one.
The kills are pretty spectacular, especially towards the end. I really enjoyed that. And the end is a fascinating one. We'll definitely get into it in screenplay for sure. But yeah, Corey Feldman's choices in this are not as bad as The Lost Boys. Let's just say that from the last episode. I really didn't like The Lost Boys at all.
I could tell. I really could tell. I was like, wow. I don't know if I've ever heard this much hate for The Lost Boys in my life.
Yeah. Terrible. But it's a vast improvement, frankly, in this movie, whether he's got hair or not. So, directing then, people, I thought the opening scenes and kills are pretty well crafted for the most part. Like the opening shots of this, like wandering camera going through the crime scene of the previous film, with all these kind of ambulances around, was nice and subtly creepy. Nothing too much, which I thought was great for the pacing of it. You know, in the hospital scene where this doctor and nurse are hanging out in the morgue, as you do, was interesting as they go for 2 fake outs before they're killed, which I thought kind of held my suspense quite well. Nurse Morgan is like waiting for Axel, the doctor, to turn up in the room where Jason is lying there under a sheet. You know, you hear and see him just about, Jason move. And then Axel jumps out, not Jason. Then when they start inevitably kissing, Jason's hand drops down and scares the shit out of the characters, but not really me. It then became like quite funny watching their reaction.
Axel's is the best. Axel's is probably one of the best reactions, where he just keeps on going and going and going, and it's just so funny because he's trying to set the mood with a video, like an aerobics video, where it's just women's butts just bouncing up and down, and he's like trying to keep it on so like to arouse the nurse, but also we're making moves next to the dead body of a serial killer. Like there's nowhere else you guys could go. Like this hospital doesn't seem like there's a lot of people there. Like she was wandering down a hall, I didn't see nobody. So
the only room available, I guess.
That was it. That's it. The bench next to Jason Voorhees. That's how we do it.
Let's go for it.
Axel playing the typical mortician, or I think that's what he technically is, and eating a sandwich when he gets the body delivered to him, and then he makes a really obscene gesture about a dead body of a girl, like that's off screen, and you're just like, I hate this guy. This guy sucks.
Please die.
Like you're just like waiting, and his death probably one of the best like kills in the movie. Just the whole like getting stabbed through the back of the neck, and then like the neck twist, which I don't know how realistic that could be. I don't know how easy it is to like twist somebody's neck like that, but it's really cool to see. Like it was really, really good effect.
Yeah, I really like this great shot as well of Axel putting Jason in the morgue before he comes out of there into the chamber thing, and he's like, as he's closing the door, you can see like Jason's breath. I thought that was really cool.
Yep.
A really cool shot. Then it felt like Jason could strike at any moment, because they've kind of done a lot of the suspense building already. You know, he jumps out and kills Axel from behind, as you say. which I don't think was effective as it could have been. Like, then the nurse's death felt a little rushed as well, with like the POV shot and then Jason like grabbing her by the throat before she finishes her sentence, then stabs her. So, the opening starts really well, but like the deaths are a little disappointing with the pacing, but I think that's just a little gripe, to be honest. I guess there's like an element of not wanting to overshare your hand in the opening too, I guess. Not making it too spectacular, as there are incredible, frankly, kills later on. So there is an element of that, I think, going on. I think there's some really well done kills here later on. Like there are, they're very simply shot, but quite effective. I like the kill where Samantha goes for a dip and gets in the rubber dinghy. There's some like simple POV shots and wide shots where you can clearly tell they're extending the camera onto the lake as much as they can, but I like the kill where they don't really hang around. Before you know it, Jason comes out of the water and grabs her head and stabs her from underneath the boat. And you see this knife come through her back, which I'm going to say is a weird way of killing somebody, but I guess Jason is just trying to challenge himself at this point.
Also, it's just a weird sequence for me, because it's like, if you would backpedal to what happens before she goes to the lake, is that she's there with her boyfriend. At least you think it's her boyfriend. But then her boyfriend starts dancing with one of the Doublemint twins, and she gets mad and leaves, hoping that he follows. She goes down to the lake, strips down to nothing, because, of course, Friday the 13th and skinny dipping is a thing. I watch a lot of movies with my wife, and we're watching this, and I literally turned around. I was like, what is the appeal of skinny dipping in a dirty lake? Like, why is this a thing? I did
think that a few times.
Why is this a thing? It's a dirty lake. Why are we skinny dipping in it? And also, why is that dinghy in the middle of the lake? Like, why is it there? Like, I understand if it's like, oh yeah, it was tied up, maybe it started flowing out, but like, why is that her first thing? It's like, I'm gonna go to that boat.
Well, I think Jason put it there and was like, you know what, this is a great tease for a teenager. Gotta get in there.
She's going out there, guys. We got her.
Yeah.
But also,
great trap.
The question is, you're talking about the kill, and it's a weird way to kill her. It's like, how deep is the lake? Is he standing there, or does he have really powerful legs where he's constantly moving those legs to the point where he's keeping himself up, and then he's holding her head down, stabbing her from underneath? He's a very agile person. Dude. Like, unbelievable. Yeah. That's why he can teleport.
Yeah. Okay. I think then when like Paul gets in the water to try and like find Sam, he's kind of like shot in a very similar way, I would say. And you're like, okay, how is this going to be different? And of course, he gets scared and after seeing her body and swims back, and Jason like comes out of the water quite abruptly, sort of before you expect him to strike, and he stabs him in the balls with a harpoon gun, I think.
Oh yeah.
But not just that, he lifts him up into the air and fires the bolt, killing him. But I don't know, unfortunately it doesn't feel as awesome as that sounds for me. I think it's just over a little bit too quick, but I don't know. Maybe being a bit harsh. But
it's a weird sequence because of everything that happens beforehand. But I've seen behind the scenes of this movie, and I remember that the filming the scene, it was very cold where they were filming. So like, there's literally him walking through the water, and he's kind of like tiptoeing. Like he's like, oh, this is cold. Just because it was actually cold. And the fact that the actress on the dinghy there had to strip down, she was like in that boat for a while, and it was just, I guess it was a rough day. But yeah, I think it's just one of those like physics. Okay, so he shoots him in the balls with a harpoon, and then somehow is able to lift him up high above his head. It's just, you kind of have to go, all right, we've been watching these movies now for a couple years. You know, we have this is the fourth one. It's gonna get more ridiculous with the kills. I think we're still somewhat grounded with the kills compared to what we'll see in future installments. But, you know, I think they're just trying something new. I know Zito is he's always trying to come one up kills in his movies. Like he did The Prowler. which came out a couple years before this. He did it with Savini doing the effects. There's actually a kill in this movie that's an homage to a kill that's in that movie, and we'll talk about it later. And he always seems to try to one up his kills. So like you have the boat kill where it's like, okay, very improbable, but then it's like, what if we shot him in the balls and then lifted him up? And it's like, I guess so. Let's go. And then it's like, all right, let's see what the next one is. Yeah. And I think that's what this movie does so effectively is like, I feel like every time we get a new kill, it's like, oh, wow, this is actually crazier than the last thing we saw. There might be some that are kind of basic, but that was kind of Zito's thing. He's like, I got Savini on board here, so let's make sure we make every kill as epic as possible.
Yeah, it definitely feels like there's a progression of how good and creative the kills are. And there's definitely like a slight shift in how the kills are done as well. They're less suspenseful and more shocking and more done with spectacle in mind. Like Jimmy's death is funny to begin with, where he's asking where the corkscrew is and Jason finds it for him and drills it in his hand. Then quickly followed by a cleaver to the face, which is definitely like the bloodiest death so far.
It's great. It was actually shot in reverse, which was really cool. You could actually tell when when the machete goes into his face that it was actually originally there, and then they pull it out. I love Crispin Glover. He's awesome. I think he's one of the highlights of this movie, especially for the horny teenagers. I love the whole dead fuck like story, like the little thing that's attached to him by his crappy friend there, Teddy. Oh God, they always make like one of the worst characters. They're like, let's name him Teddy.
That's an annoying name. Let's call him.
Yeah, he's the worst.
Then when like the other twin is up at the window, I think moments later, and she thinks she's seen something and is constantly keeps looking out the window. So if they were like trying to keep up this suspenseful tone, they weren't really doing a great job. But
they had to give Jason enough time to get from downstairs where he just killed Jimmy and Teddy. Yeah. Now he's got to get up to the side of the house in the middle of a rainstorm to yoink this girl out the window.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Jason literally crashes through the window, which was expected, I think. But Jason literally throws her out of the building, and it's done with incredible slow motion. I did not expect that at all. Plus, she actually like crashes into the car as well, all done in slow-mo. That was really spectacular.
Some great stunt work right there.
Yeah. Yeah, I just did not expect it. Just how grand it all felt. I feel like, you've had a lot of pretty good deaths, and then this one just like goes up to 11.
Oh yeah,
pretty quick. You're like, whoa,
because for one, you always have the cues when Jason's around. You have his iconic mama, like that. When that starts to, when you start hearing that, you're like, he's here, he's somewhere. Think something bad is about to happen. And when you see somebody constantly look in the same place more than once, that eventually it's going to be their downfall. And that's kind of what we get here with her getting yoinked out of the window. It's kind of a shame, though, because she gets such a great death. And then her sister kind of gets a lame in the shadows death. But then she pops up at the end where it's like, okay, I guess it's not terrible. I guess it's better than we get from the mom, the Jarvis mom, because you don't even get to see her. She just disappears.
Yeah. That was really disappointing. I thought she would get a decent death, but no, she just disappears.
I think it's because we all loved her so much and we didn't want to see her die.
Yeah, they were like, shit, we can't really do a spectacular death here because we like you too much.
Yeah, you've actually been good.
Yeah, it did feel like, what's the character's name in the thing where he doesn't really get a death towards the end before?
Oh, well, Wilford Brimley doesn't he?
Yeah, he does, yeah.
Yeah.
The black guy.
Weird monster. Yeah. Childs. Yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't get
it's kind of, they leave it like, they kind of leave it open to like who's possibly is the thing.
Yeah.
In that moment.
Because they did shoot a death scene for him, but apparently it was
they did
overkill. I guess.
Yeah, and then I think Carpenter was like, he liked the way that he wanted people to question, oh my god, we don't see his breath, or Kurt Russell filled it up with gasoline. He actually was drinking gasoline, and so that's how he's like. It was a bunch of theories, and I love it.
Yeah.
It's great. I'm glad they did.
So
it way.
It kind of brought me back to that movie, not in a good way though. Just like, come on.
You're like, The Thing did it good. This one, not so much.
No. The pacing in the last scene is really great for the last few kills of the teenagers. Like, again, Jason like follows his tradition of like killing them through things. Like a kid gets it by Jason punching his way through the glass of the shower, then a knife through the projector screen for another kid.
The shower scene is great because that's the homage to the Prowler, because there's a very similar death in that movie. So it was. I thought it was great. The only thing is always the setup to it that always seems to be like, oh my god, you know, you're watching a slasher, so you shouldn't be too judgmental on the characters. But as someone who, you know, does this all the time, who just goes a little extra on the criticisms of certain things, there was the fact that, you know, they do it in the shower and then she takes a towel into the shower while it's still on. And I'm like, that towel's soaking wet now. Like, how is that effective? I understand why they did it, you know, because she didn't want to be nude on screen, but it was just weird. And then she leaves and we have to follow her going into her room and kind of looking at herself in the mirror, because we have to get this whole thing where she doesn't think she's pretty enough to get the guy. And that was kind of her whole thing in the conversation she has earlier. Yeah. Another problem with these movies is they try to incorporate things like that into a Jason movie. And sometimes it works, and sometimes you're just like, eh. Like, we have the Jarvis family stuff. I think I care more about that than, like, what's going on with this teen girl that we know is going to die. Yeah,
you're kind of, like, waiting for them to get killed,
right?
I guess. And that's why kind of, like, the pacing of in that house, it goes up a little bit of, like, okay, we need to kind of kill all the people in this house now.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can get to the good stuff in the Jarvis house.
But as it continues, like, she goes in there, you know, she's in her room, and then Jason is stalking the dude in the shower. And he's like, you know, what was her name? I think her name was Sarah. He's like, Sarah?
Yeah.
Sarah. Like, just keeps saying her name over and over again, just staring at the door that he could easily just slide open and to see who is there. But he's got to stare at the pane glass or whatever of the shower door. And then, of course, the iconic punching through the glass and like, you know,
squeezing
breaking his jaws or whatever. Yeah. I mean, it's a really cool kill, but it's always just the little things, like the little setups to the kill, which is always like, ugh. It reminds me of Part 2. Like, there's literally a scene where a character we like, he's just sitting in one spot, staring forward, calling a name 16 times, and then he gets killed from behind. You're like, why didn't you move your head? Like, why aren't we just common sense? And I get it's for the sake of what's going on, but also, would it really have mattered if he opened it up? Because Jason knows how to hide. He's like, he can fit into like everything. So like, opens the door, no one's there. Shuts the door, continues his shower. Then he hears something else. He turns, then he gets the hand to the face. And I think it would have been a little bit more effective than just him standing there going, Sarah, are you out there? Sarah.
Yeah. But I think like the way kind of the last scene starts off doesn't start off very well at all, I don't think, with Rob's death, where he goes down into the basement and Jason starts attacking everyone, attacking him, and everyone starts screaming, but you can't see shit.
This is the best. Listen, I'm going to tell you right now, I love this scene so much. This is one of my favorite scenes of the whole franchise. It's not even just him getting attacked. It's him yelling, he's killing me.
Yeah.
He's killing me. He's killing me. And yeah, she like runs away for a second, but then goes back down there. And you're like, why? Why are you doing this? But his reaction is fantastic. And he's like that little nugget. Like I was saying, like there's always that little nugget that connects it to prior movies. So like, of course, the beginning of the movie is the end of 3. So that's your connective tissue. But Rob, this guy, this random dude who just walks up and immediately introduces himself to this random 8-year-old child. He's like, "Hey, Rob, yeah, what's up? Yeah, what's going on here?" He's the brother of a girl that died in the second one. Yeah,
I think
Sandra.
they mention it,
yeah. So there's your like little like they do this with the remake. They actually take this little piece and kind of expand it into the remake of like a sister disappears. supposedly dead, but the brother comes to try to find her type thing. They don't really do much with this one. He's just kind of there. Like he already knows she's dead, but he's there to like help stop Jason or whatever, but it goes nowhere. But his death scene it makes me laugh every time. I know what's going to happen. I know what he's going to say, and I laugh every single time. And it really makes me love this movie even more.
Yeah. I mean, I was just like, what's happening? What's happening? Oh, okay.
Oh, yes. It's very dark.
And then only when the back of Jason's head comes into the light that you can see anything.
Yeah. It's
but
fantastic.
then after that, like, Jason's just not subtle at all. He throws Rob through the glass window, crashes through the door, and then like throws a hammer at Trish, narrowly missing her. So he's not messing about now.
No.
Like, Jason loves throwing things and people in this film. It's pretty relentless stuff.
Yeah, he loves crashing through things. Like, he throws the body, and then he grabs Tommy through the window, which
again, through things.
Right. Ted White, who plays Jason, was not a fan of Corey Feldman. He thought he was a little annoying little brat of a child. And so he was like, hey, when we do this, don't tell him we're doing it. Really? Like, they knew they were doing the scene, but he wasn't going to tell him when they were going to do it. So when he comes through the window to grab him, like, Corey Feldman does not know this is happening at this moment. Wow. Like, his reaction is genuine. And so I thought that was fantastic. And then, of course, he goes back outside to then crash through the door, which is another iconic shot of him just like,
oh yeah,
we don't believe in opening doors. He just wants to walk through them.
Yeah.
And it just shows, and I think it's more of just showing how powerful this man is. And it's always kind of, even I think now, before supernatural stuff was even introduced into this franchise, we were just like, there's got to be something extra with this guy. Like, there's no way he is taking all this damage and still able to walk if he is an actual person. Like, this is supposed to just be a guy, a demented dude going around killing people to avenge his mother.
Anyone that gets in his way. Yeah.
But Ted White is just so his stature when he crashes through that door and he just stands there for a second, you're just like,
so well done.
I'm crapping my pants sitting on my couch. Like, this man is scary. Like, this is a terrifying human.
Yeah, it's pretty relentless stuff. And like, until like Trish like throws a TV at his head at the door. But even then, when Jason is on the ground, you get like 30 seconds break before like Jason is on his feet again and chases Trish to the other house until like Trish just decides she's not going to let the twins have all the fun and throws herself through the window.
Well, we also like the amount of people that throw themselves out of windows or get thrown out of windows. There's a scene. We have a dog. There's a dog in this movie, everybody.
Yep. Throws himself.
And he's like, I don't want to be any part of this movie. I don't want to be any part of this at all. Literally runs into the house, runs all the way up the stairs, and then just jumps out a window. A closed window, by the way. And then he's gone. You never see him again. He's just out of here. He's bye.
Wise dog.
Yeah. But this is also where we get Jason running. Like, we get Jason running. This is it starts to slow down as the franchise goes along, where it's mostly him just walking and kind of teleporting himself into the areas he needs to. But like, this is Jason legit like sprinting. Like, Trish runs out the door, he's running after her, and it makes him feel human. Where later on he becomes a more supernatural being. So like, he doesn't need to run anymore. He did that.
So I guess you have like a little slight pause again after, you know, Trish runs through the window before the action gets even more brutal and bloody with like the machete nearly cutting Jason's hand off. That was really great.
That was really good.
Then the great reveal of like Jason's mask coming off, and he is in fact Sloth from the Goonies with a hangover. The poor guy.
This movie actually came out a year before that, so this one. So the Goonies copied Friday the 13th, Chapter 4.
Okay. The Sloth. Okay, we're going to make Jason sober in the Goonies. Then probably the best death of the film is where like Tommy cuts through Jason's head and then kind of falls to the ground, and the weight of his head kind of pushes the machete through his head even more. Very gory, very brutal. Yeah, so I just enjoyed kind of the relentless pace of the end, that you have little pauses in there, but they do not last for long at all.
Yeah, I love the fact that it's not just your basic, like, Jason chases after the final girl.
Yeah.
Final girl is able to get an upper hand on him and kill him, or, you know, stop him for that movie. Like, it's it's this whole thing where you have Rob, who's looking for his sister. He has all these like newspaper clippings about Jason. Tommy has those now, and he looks through them, sees what Jason looked like, makes himself look like young Jason to then kind of get in his head to the point where Trish can then get the upper hand, and then, you know, Tommy does his thing. And I think that whole setup is great. You know, it's nothing too complicated. And that axe to the side of the head and then him sliding down on the ground is one of my favorite effects. It's so well done. And then it's kind of the whole thing where it causes Tommy to snap, and he just sees like a little flinch from Jason causing him to go, you know, crazy and finish him off. But it's a great ending. It's one of my favorite endings of this franchise.
Yeah, it's really well done. Yeah, just seeing Corey Feldman just go for it at the end was kind of chilling as well. You know, that you think Jason is just going to be the one doing all the violence in this, and then when Tommy is doing it, you're like, okay, this is not making me feel good at all. I mean, was there a sense that they were kind of, because this was called the final chapter, but they were leaving the door open a little bit? Were they considering moving it to Tommy as the main killer, or was that never really a go?
I think that was an idea. I think the way that they kind of set everything up at the end, I think it was kind of, the filmmakers really were like, if we were to go back to this, because this was supposed to be the end. That's why they called it the final chapter, or at least it was supposed to be the end of the Jason story. Like Jason Voorhees was not going to be the killer. And so, yeah, it was always, I think it was their first idea to kind of put Tommy in the killer's seat. But then I think they kind of were hesitant on it because they're like, but we like this character and he goes through a very tragic experience. So why are we turning him into the villain? Like he actually helped stop this killer to then become the killer. I would have been fine with it, but I get where they went. But then we got New Beginning, which is probably one of my least favorite of the franchise. Okay. It's just, to me, it's kind of a mess, but I guess it's for hardcore Friday the 13th fans. They really have a love-hate relationship with that one. And I know it was just kind of coming up with some sort of idea where they didn't have to make Tommy the killer.
Yeah. I guess they were probably just auditioning like Corey Feldman for the killer in the next one, and he put on a deeper voice, and they're like, oh no, let's not. Save that for the Lost Boys.
I think part 5 came out a year. I think it came out a year after this one, or maybe 2 years. I'm not sure. I know there was a new one out every year. I think until like part 7 or 6, where there was like a 2-year gap. So that, I think part 5 came out in 1985. So it was like literally a year later. So Corey Feldman wasn't that old.
No. One of his first films, yeah.
Yeah, they had to cast a different guy to play Tommy in part 5. And then they recasted him for part 6 because that was supposed to be a significant time later.
Oh, okay.
So we do get a cameo from Corey in part 5. But it's kind of, I'll leave it at that. But it's part 5 is, I don't want to say too much, especially for someone who hasn't seen it. I think it's one of those like, go into it blind.
Does he have hair?
And then because it's not immediately after 4. It's supposed to take place a little bit after. So he's like a teenager now. It's a weird one, man. It's very, very weird.
Okay. Favorite shot or scene for you, Parker?
Ooh, this is a tough one. I really love the Jimmy kill in the kitchen, where he's looking for the corkscrew, and you get the corkscrew in the hand, and then that just awesome reverse shot of the machete going into his face. I think it's an iconic kill of the franchise, to be honest. And I do like Axel's kill. I really do. I like the head twist. I like, for one, I hate the character's sleazeball. So getting to see him die was always fun. But I think I'll give it to Jimmy.
Cool. I think for me, I found this kill awesome. I think you've mentioned this one already and you weren't fond of it, but I really liked it. It's super quick, but awesome. And it's when it's Tina's kill, I think, or maybe the other twin, where she leaves the house in the rain and there's like great lighting effects and it's all done in one big push-in shot. Obviously, it starts super wide and the camera moves in and the camera goes past Tina getting on the bike and the camera's going towards the window of the house, and you're like, oh, okay, Jason's going to kill someone inside the house. Nope. A big lightning crack happens and you see Tina's silhouette up against the house, and then Jason's silhouette comes in to shot and stabs her in the back. Such a great, like, quick kill for me. And then on top of that, when we come back outside again, her body is like speared up against the wall of the house. So that was really good for me. Yeah, that would be my favorite kill. Directing score, Parker, what are you going for?
I thought this one was directed pretty well. I like Joseph Zito as a director. I'm not like super into like everything he's done, but I've seen The Prowler. I thought that was a very well shot slasher, and I think for a slasher, I just like the way that the houses are lit, the way that everything is lit in the rain. I think he just does a great job at kind of giving us an idea of how the environments are and where these people are traveling and everything. So I'll probably give it like a 7.5.
Yeah, 7.5.
Yeah, I think it's well done. I think there's some shots that are kind of weird. I hate car shots. I just hate them. I like conversations in cars are just weird because it just doesn't make any sense. Like everybody's talking in a normal tone, but they have like no back, like the back of the car doesn't have any glass. So it's like constantly wind is blowing and you constantly yelling. I don't know. It's just a weird thing to not like, but I'm like, oh God. Why do I hate this?
I think there's some really well crafted stuff in this. Some really great kills, as we've mentioned. Sometimes kind of the rhythm of things doesn't quite work to its like full potential, but on the whole it's a pretty good movie. I think like it ends super well. It starts really well. In the middle it's a bit shaky, so I'll go like a straight 7, I think.
All right.
Screenplay then. I mean, obviously you've mentioned, Parker, that this is a continuation on from part 3, and it's a very, and you have nuggets from each movie following on. But I think, essentially there isn't really much to the story here, frankly. It's just basically kill scene after kill scene, and that's about it. But then Rob, a drifter type character from the first movie? I can't remember.
His sister was in the second.
Yeah, so he's not. So this is his first appearance, right?
Yeah, he doesn't show up in any other one. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you don't necessarily know who this guy is. He's just kind of a drifter type character, comes into the fold and seems to be very fascinated by some of Corey Feldman's monster masks. And you're like, okay, there's something not quite right about this guy. Then about halfway through, it's revealed that Rob is the brother of Sandra, who was killed in part 2. And you're like, oh, okay, there's some real like emotional motivation here. But it doesn't really come to anything as he dies pretty early on in the final act. Is pretty, just turn some lights on, people. And then, I mean, it might be done as sort of a story misdirect thing, but I don't think it really worked, to be honest. That maybe you're going into it once you've revealed that this reveal has happened, that he is related to Sandra from the previous film, that, the focus is going to be on him, and they're using that narrative to pull the wool over your eyes or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't think it really works.
Yeah, I feel like I can agree with you. I think it feels very just kind of thrown in there to just be there. It's like, hey, remember Sandra from part 2? Like, this is her brother. Like, he's gonna help stop Jason, but yet it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, which is
weird. It's like, I feel like if you're going to introduce this character, maybe have him be with Trish throughout the rest. They fight alongside each other. It doesn't go anywhere. He doesn't do anything. He just ends up going to the basement and getting killed. And it could. I don't think it would have affected the movie at all if that character just didn't exist.
Maybe he was just thinking that he was doing in that kill that he was just doing the audio description for the DVD at that point, that the subtitles didn't work or something. I don't know. When he's saying he's stabbing me, I'm like, okay,
yeah.
Sure.
It's great. It's one of my best. It's one of my favorites. It gets me every time. He's killing me is just like, okay, we get it. I don't know what you want me to do.
Maybe he's just realizing there's just aren't that many lights, so he has to describe what's happening. I don't know.
Yeah.
So Corey Feldman cutting his hair off at the end was kind of really weird for me. A really weird one. I understand the connection that he's into masks and makeup effects, and that he's seen like a newspaper picture of what Jason looked like as a kid, but I'm not sure there's been enough in the narrative for both these characters to justify that. And like Jason just seems transfixed on Corey Feldman's bald head, like he's just found his long lost baby twin. It's super bold. It's a bold move that could have worked if we had a little bit more like narrative building up to that, even to the point where is Corey Feldman's character gonna become a killer with that final shot? It all feels a bit too weird and random, but I definitely appreciate those choices, though. Yeah, I mean, it's really a great surprise when you're watching it, and you're like, okay, this is really strange and weird, and I'm here for it. But what's happening? Yeah, I guess it might be because I don't know enough about Jason as a character. Maybe there isn't much to him at all. I don't know, but yeah.
I think it's kind of the whole thing where we keep seeing that newspaper clipping where it actually shows Jason's face, where it kind of like clicks with Tommy that like, because I think you're supposed to believe like Jason originally Jason was dead. He was like he died at the camp. His mom seeks revenge. She ends up dying. And then in part 2, you find out Jason didn't die. And you then find out like he's disfigured and all that, where also he may have this like childlike mentality as well, where it's like he's seeing Tommy as like a reflection of himself. And he's like, maybe it's like his like that guy on his shoulder telling him to like stop doing it, or hey, listen to me type thing. So I didn't see it as weird maybe as you did, just because I feel like there was the little things you may have to pick up on. Especially that newspaper clipping, I think is the kind of the reasoning behind him doing it. And it was the only way that would distract him from killing Trish. Okay. I don't know. That's just my guess.
Yeah. So funny and interesting lines.
I think you know what line I'm going to say, and that is when Rob is in the basement getting killed, and he's just going, "He's killing me! He's killing me!" It's the best. I also like the fact that that shitty friend, oh God, what is his name? Teddy. He's got the whole teddy bear thing, and then he leans over to the girl. He's like, "Do you want to give Teddy Bear a kiss?" And I was like, "Oh God, whoa,
no."
Yeah.
I think it's your turn to get killed.
Yes, please.
I've got a few good ones. Topical one, NFL at the moment. Axel, you're the Super Bowl of self-abuse. Jimbo calling Betty definitely a dead fuck thing to do, is a dead fuck thing to do. Is a running joke through it. I think I'm going to lose my lollipop. Maybe laugh. But I think my favorite is from Axel near the beginning when he gets scared of Jason's hand falling down. And he says, "Holy Jesus, jumping Christmas shit." Obviously not a Christmas fan.
And he just keeps going. It's great. It's such a great reaction.
Just traumatized at Christmas. Okay. Screenplay score, Arca, what are you going for?
It's a Friday the 13th movie. Can't really go too high on it. I think this has a solid screenplay compared to some of its predecessors, because I do like the inclusion of the Jarvis family. I think the teenagers aren't all bad. I love Crispin Glover and his terrible dance. I just love the inclusion. It's just so weird. Like there's just some weird relationship things that were kind of like, what do we do? Like it's like the screenwriters are like, we don't know what a real relationship is. He's gonna cheat on his girlfriend right in front of his girlfriend. What the? You're like, what? All right, sure. So that's gonna mark it down. Yeah. But I think the Jarvis family, I think they're really well thought out. I thought they all work together very well. And yeah, I'm going to give this like a 6.
Yeah.
I think it's better than I think it's better than 50%. But to go higher than a 6 on a screenplay on a Friday the 13th movie is just kind of, I think you're pushing it. You're really pushing it, because these movies are about Jason and the unique ways he's going to kill, horny teenagers.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think they were trying to maybe do something a little bit different. And the core of this story is, Trish and Tommy, what they're doing in this film. So, but I feel like that's just not enough to fill 90 minutes. Unfortunately, you got to have some teenagers to kill. Unfortunately, well, fortunately, if they're really great kills, and they are. So there's that balance that they're kind of trying to strike in this, and they're always kind of going back from house to house, kind of thing, and that might be a reason why we don't get a death scene for the mum as well, that they kind of like, we have to cut something around here. So and the end is, as we've said, is a really bold swing, really interesting. I don't think it entirely works, but I appreciate the swing. So, but again, like going higher than a 6 is tough, because it's very, very simple. So I'll go like a 5.5. I think that's fair. Right. Acting then. I think Corey Feldman is pretty good.
Yeah.
Mainly because he's using his normal voice compared to the Lost Boys from the last episode. But I did love his kind of uncontrollable like excitement seeing like a teenage girl undressing. That was very funny. That he was just jumping up, starting to like bash the pillow like he can't believe this is happening in front of his eyes. And again, like the end with his bald head does seem to be very creepy, but my main emotions were just being a little confused at that point of just like, okay, why is this happening? But there is enough creepiness in that kind of whole design, that whole look there that does get you under your skin a little bit, as well as that kind of pushes away the confusion a little bit. So I guess on more viewings, that performance will shine through a bit more for me. But on first viewing, I'm very torn of just trying to work out what his choice is, and the boldness, and just him like going at it as well. Those two emotions kind of battling on that first viewing.
For me, it's like, you again, like I always feel like I have to start this with like, we're watching a Friday the 13th movie. We're not signing up for we're not signing up for a screenplay. We're not signing up for fantastic actors. We're just going in there for Jason and his unique kills. Acting isn't terrible though. No. There are moments where you're just like, oh, that I feel like we could have gone again. We could have done another shot of that. But again, I will iterate. I love Crispin Glover. I think Corey Feldman does a good job for his first role. I do enjoy Corey Feldman in his early roles. Like, I think he does great in Gremlins, which also came out the same year as this. Of course, he's one of the memorable characters in Goonies, but I do agree he's like one of the least, one of my least favorite characters in the Lost Boys, because you're just like, you want to like the Frog Brothers, but yeah. But then they're like, hey, what? What would sell tickets? Why don't we make sequels with the Frog Brothers as the central characters? And you're like, who wanted this?
Not me. Absolutely not.
Yeah, it is what it is. It's kind of your run of the mill acting. A lot of it is just cheesy lines between teenagers who just want to sleep with each other. The Jarvis, the whole, like, every conversation that the Jarvises have with each other, I think is very genuine. I like it. I like the whole, like, the relationship between the brother and the sister. It's not, it's kind of weird. They kind of seem like the sister seems like she's like 25 and Corey Feldman's like 8. She could be his mom. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
But hey, whatever. Yeah. It's just kind of run of the mill. Nothing too special. So,
but I think arguably the scariest thing about this film is the little dance / jig Crispin Glover does when he asks, I think, Carrie Moore's character to dance. I mean, I've seen some terrible dance scenes in films before, but this takes the biscuit. It's like a combination of Tai Chi on speed and an early form of headbanging. It's quite extraordinary. It's impressive.
That's fantastic.
I know it's supposed to make like the character really awkward, but I was just kind of in shock as well. I was just like, wow, what is he doing, man?
It was all improvised too. They just told him to dance, and that was what he came up with. And they're like, perfect. Sounds great.
Yeah. It's something. It's something. So yeah, my favorite performance is Crispin Glover.
I'll second that.
Yeah, just because he was just brilliantly awkward in this. Obviously, he went on to be in Back to the Future as well, and all that kind of same energy. One of my favorite films of his as well is Willard.
So good.
Where he controls rats in that. Yep. That's a really cool movie. Not the greatest fan of rats, so very effective for me. And as you say, like the actor who plays Jason just feels really powerful in that last scene, especially. Just you really are on the edge of your seat when you're watching those last scenes of him, because it's very brutal, and I think a lot of that definitely comes from the acting of him, not necessarily the directing. It's just not really Michael Myers. He's too quick for Michael Myers. But yeah, he just brings a great, like, relentless quality in a less sort of dead, menacing way, if that makes sense, that Michael Myers brings. It's just more of a brute force, killing mode, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is what they do to Jason later on in the franchise. Just they kind of turn him into a Michael Myers, where it's, Michael Myers doesn't run. He walks everywhere, but he always seems to get the job done in the slowest way possible. And kind of that's the way Jason becomes when he becomes the zombie form of himself.
So acting score, Parker, what are you going for?
I'll be a little generous. I'll give it a 6. I don't think there's a single like bad performance. You have your bad characters, but that's not the actor's fault if a character's shitty. Ted. But I think Ted White carries his performance as Jason. He doesn't have any dialogue, but just his demeanor on screen. Crispin Glover, I think, carries the teenagers' performances because of just the way he puts himself out there, the dance, all that. I think it's fantastic. And then the Jarvis is, I think, elevated as well. Just having that little side story with them and kind of having them feel like an actual family. I thought that was really well done, where they could have just thrown random people together and it probably wouldn't have worked, but they're like, who cares? We cared about the Jarvises. At least I did. So I think that elevates it to a degree. So I'll give it at least a 6. It's tough. This might be probably one of the higher scores when it comes to acting in any of these movies.
Okay.
So yeah, I think a 6 is pretty generous.
Yeah. I think, Corey Feldman is pretty good in this, especially towards the end, as I've said. Ted White, did you say, is really, he had a great presence to him as Jason. And as you say, Crispin Glover, peak awkward teenager.
Yep.
So,
100%.
I think I'll second that. Maybe just a few extra points for Ted White, because he was pretty scary at the end. So I'll give, when he's lit properly, 6.3 for me. Let's add up the scores then for Friday the 13th, the not so final chapter. Friday the 13th, the final chapter gets a pretty respectable, for what this film is, 38.3. So not bad. Not bad.
Not bad at all.
That's it for part 1. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Check out part 2 to see who wins. But don't stop there. Get involved and tell me what your favourite films are relating to the episode. Send us a DM or comment on Instagram and TikTok at Film vs. Film Podcast. For X at FVF_podcast. Plus, we are now on YouTube, so hit that like button and comment there. If you do, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Remember, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Pod signing off.